Good evening, traders. Um, I'm excited to speak to you guys about this very important topic, which is don't blow the bag, right? So I had two choices to make in mounting this stage. The first one was to speak more about day in the life of a trader, and then the second one was to speak about this topic. And I decided to choose this topic specifically because of what it means to a lot of traders. So many a times, a lot of traders make big breaks, and then that actually becomes their big ruin. And I, being a mentor and a trader in this space, I've particularly witnessed guys that have made crazy amount of money and then literally went home still poor and broke. And so when I was asked to speak about this topic, it was very emotional to me. And then I'm like, I'm going to go deeper in breaking down how I have personally used my own journey to steer things in the way it has favored me. So, first of all, we talk more about the beginning, right? When you are a trader and then you make your big win, what are some of the emotions that get through your head? And what are some of the things that you do think about first? So, if you're starting trading, right, so many a times people don't even have, like, a lot of traders don't have finance backgrounds. So they don't even understand return on investment. When they're trading and they're making any type of money, it's just more about compounding that is important to them, making them more profit and not necessarily thinking from an investment point. Like, if they had put that money towards a regulated investment, how would that return be? All they care about is that I put 20,000 in my trading account, I'm up $5,000, I'm up $10,000. It's all that matters. Nobody's really thinking about what is the percentage gain on that 20,000 in terms of the profit. But as a finance guy, then it becomes very important. When you get a big win, there are certain times that, in fact, all the time, certain psychological characteristics that you tend to experience, right? When you make that big win, you don't really have those type of experiences in your smaller wins. When you make that 0.5%, 1%, 2%, it feels like, okay, I just got started. But when you make a big break in trading, there are certain psychological hurdles that just creeps in without even you realizing. And that could be like that euphoria feeling, right? Feeling on top of the world. It's like you don't even know what to do with the money anymore. And I recount my own story. Back in 2017, when I decided to go full-time, I was working with a corporate organization. It was an entry-level job. I couldn't save much because it was a 9 to 5, and all I had on my savings was $2,000. And I decided to put that whole $2,000 into trading, right? Now, when I put it into trading, I was not living on my own. I didn't even have a car. All my objective was to turn that money around and start living life for myself. So with that 2,000, it was my whole life, my income, my everything. Initially, what I was doing was that anytime I grow that account, maybe make $200 on the 2,000, I quickly withdraw it. $100 on the 2,000, I quickly withdraw it, right? Until I felt like I have enough money to have an upkeep, and so it was time to go big. Going big meant that if I'm able to make a lot of money from that, then it'll probably set me up to have my own apartment, rent, and perhaps even be able to buy a small car to start with. So with the 2,000, on one fateful day, I think it was a GBP interest rate announcement, I went big on the $2,000, and then it went in my favor, right? The truth of the matter is that you know how that thing goes. You can be having good streaks of win when you're trading normally, and then the very day you decide that I'm going to flip this account, 99% of the time it doesn't go in your favor. So for me, I'd say I was very glad that it did go in my favor. And then I was able to turn that 2,000 to have a floating profit of 1,800. So it meant that I had $3,800 running. And I was very excited because that was like the biggest money I had made then, as a random profit. And from where I come from, which is Ghana, there were so many things I could do with that money in 2017. But I had a friend, a non-trader friend with me, and I was asking him that, now that I have this floating profit, what do I do? Should I close it so that we just start planning our life around? And the funny advice the friend gave me? He says that, let me round it up to 4,000. And that was the end of that account. I saw it go down and down and down. From all the hopes I had, all the plans I had, that account was gone. And that came from euphoric feelings. Because at that point, I'm not really thinking about even securing the money and then thinking, I'm all excited about what I can do about it, what I can do with the money, what I can do with the money. And so 90% of traders fall in that same trap. Now, if you go through that type of experience, what you realize is that you even find yourself falling in this next trap, which is fear of loss. Because after losing that money, it took me so many years to get out of the fear of losing money. Because all the time, anytime I have any trading account and then I think of putting on a position, the only thing I think about is that, what if I lose the whole money and I go back into, having zero? So you reckon that a moment that was supposed to make me happy, a moment that was supposed to elevate me, suddenly brought me back into retrogression, which is now putting even fear and psychological hurdle in me. So if you want to overcome situations like that, right, then you very well know that what? You must be very emotionally aware of yourself, right? And mastering your emotions or being emotionally aware of yourself comes from understanding that trading is one thing, right? More like the means, right? Or let me say, yes, I'll call it a means. And then whatever your objective is the end, right? And that statement is very important. I like to say it a lot because I say trading is the means to the end, not the end itself. And once you begin to understand that trading is the means and not the end itself, you tend to separate your emotions from the market and your emotions from your own self and then from the market. We are talking about not blowing the bag after a big win. How many of us have had serious things to deal with in life, have crazy plans, but the moment you have that profit rolling in, suddenly everything changes, right? If you're trading, you mostly have your objective, what you want to do, but the moment you have good streaks, good profits, then suddenly everything changes. You're thinking about the luxury bag you saw, the luxury car, social media, who bought this one, and then your plans are absolutely distorted. What I like to tell my friends, especially my very close friends, when they make any money in trading, I give them these simple tips, and I tell them that what? Breathe on the money, right? When I say breathe on the money, what it basically means is that if you had your $10,000 or $20,000 or $100,000, and then you made some crazy returns, and then all of these feelings is coming, you want to make the big impulse purchase, neglecting your plan, just don't do anything. Leave that money sitting for the next at least 3 days. Because within that 3 days, you'd have your priorities properly aligned psychologically. Because within that 3 days, you begin to ask yourself a lot of questions. The unnecessary things will naturally creep out, and then the relevant things will stay at the top. So I don't rush with spending money when I make any big break. I always take my time. Sometimes it goes months without doing anything. I'd rather be happy seeing the cash sitting down while I'm making proper plans than making impulsive decisions or impulsive spending and then having the money go. Because the moment you tap that card, the moment you swipe, you cannot reverse that action. It goes forever. That's how money is. It goes forever. Like, you cannot have it back again. Everybody knows on social media, okay, Kojo just purchased a G63. Where's their money? It's gone. $350,000 is gone. If I had plans of, okay, I want to complete this project back home, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to buy a property here, it's gone. If it was excitement that got me into making that big purchase, I cannot revert it. I cannot take the car back to the showroom and say, give me back my cash. So that's why I say that what you need to always breathe on that money and make sure that it's something that you really, really need before you make any next move. So one way to solve this pitfalls here, which is the impulsive, neglecting financial strategy, lack of emergency, is breathing on the money, right? Taking your time and not rushing to make any bad financial decision, because once you fall into that, it will be almost impossible to revert. Now, financial literacy in trading is very important, right? Because as a trader, you are an entrepreneur. That's what most people don't really think about or take for granted. Because as a trader, you even go beyond being an entrepreneur, because for the most part, you are an entrepreneur with all the titles in a proper startup, right? You are the CEO, you are the finance director, you are the psychologist, you are the HR, you are literally everything. And so when you are not able to understand your roles and responsibilities and break them down in a manner that fits how a proper structured organization will run, then you're probably not even ready for this job. Because if you're trading, you're thinking about long term. You're thinking about how well you're going to be grounded in this industry for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, for the next 15 years, for the next 20 years or 30 years. I've seen so many guys come into this industry, make big breaks, their name's trending, then the next 5 years, they're nowhere to be found. 10 years, they're nowhere to be found. Why? Because they didn't have any proper financial structures. They didn't have any long-term goals. More so because they didn't have any proper financial literacy. And you don't have to go to business school to know about financial literacy these days. There are thousands of books that teaches that, right? I had the privilege to go to business school and read accounting, also did finance, but I always tell people that those are very generic knowledge, even though they complemented a lot of the things and made some of the things that I studied easier. But with the world we live in now, with AI influx and information being everywhere, I don't think that anything is holding anybody back to understand finance and personal investment to the maximum level that they want to really achieve. So your hobby now as a trader could be piling up those finance books. Stop reading the novels. I mean, if you want to, it's fine as a hobby, but I'd recommend that you really get yourself grounded in finance books, in investment books, in things that open your mind into economics and investment, and then, basically where you can put your money properly. These are simple steps and strategies for managing your wealth, because after you make that big money, right, we come back to the topic or the statement that I made, which is trading is the means to the end and not the end itself. What I mean by that is that so many people think trading is a passive income, because it's like, oh, maybe they may have they may have their own job or a side gig, and then when they have a bit of time, they come to do trading. But you reckon that if trading is a side income or a main income, which is your full-time, trading basically predominantly falls under that active income generation than passive. Active because you have to be seated by the chart, analyze, draw the lines, monitor the chart, and place a trade before you make any money, or perhaps even lose money. You cannot sit down, not do anything, and then the $100,000 will grow by itself. It never happens. So that means that if you're reliant on trading to be your livelihood, your source of livelihood, to be that income that you use to take care of yourself and your family and grow your wealth, that means that you need to be actively healthy, mentally stable, and physically strong to always sit down and repeat those things. So, do you not ever fear that if you fall sick, because you hear stories on social media where guys fall sick 3 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, they are bedridden. Do you ever really think about that? That, okay, trading is my full-time income source. But what if I fall sick now? Everybody is depending on me. What if I fall sick now? What if something happens to me and I'm not able to sit down and repeat the things I do? How am I going to still get that income flowing in? Once you start thinking that way, then you're preparing yourself towards the strategies for managing your wealth, which means that any new money that comes in, you're looking to diversify that money in a manner that would release you off continuously looking for active income. And that's the stage that I am currently in. And that's a very difficult transition to make as a trader, because all you are excited about is that instant gratification. As a trader, if you make money, you're getting paid now, and that money is like, sometimes it feels like a gift. It doesn't even feel like you worked so hard for. And for the most part, you barely ever get any industry in the form of any diversified investment that can pay you return-wise the money that you're going to usually get trading. So you don't even get excited diversifying, because you go to a bank or you speak to an investment banker, a finance guy, and then they're telling you that, oh, put your money towards this stock, put your money towards this treasury, towards this bonds, and then you're going to get 10% per annum, 7% per annum, 4%. And you're like, why should I put my money here for 4% per annum when I can put it in trading and make 10% per month? So you get even discouraged. You don't even get excited about going on that route. But the risk here is that it brings us back to the conversation of the active and passive income. Because you have to always ask yourself that, are you going to be 24/7, 50 years of your life, 40 years of your life, still in that mental state, that awareness, that strength to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? And that's a risk, So once you have that consciousness, then you don't want to play with that diversification. And in diversification, the first thing you have to ask yourself is what? Setting that clear financial goal. I talked about seeing traders that have lost millions, right? Sometimes in days, in weeks. I clearly remember one friend of mine, he's from the UK, he lives in Dubai here. We met online, collaborated, and then he shared a sad bit of his trading experiences and then what he had been experiencing trading-wise. I went through his account history and I saw that this guy had lost like over $1.2 million. But the account that he gave me access to, he still had some funds in there and then he was trading, right? His whole goal, his whole mindset, his whole mentality for the last 1 month had been to recover his $1.2 million, which is okay, right? But while I had access to his trading account and then he was placing trades, I'd be monitoring. He had about 100 and something thousand. He would place a trade and then he would have $70,000 profit running, $80,000 profit running, right? On a $100,000 account. That's 70% up. And then he would not close the trade. He would be holding on to it, watching it go up and down before he realized back into break even and then even go down into drawdown. And then he would lose the account and then top up again. So I saw that and I was like, this is not making sense. Why would a normal person be behaving like that? That barely equal to gambling his money away. So I had a very personal conversation with him that Why is he on this trajectory, right? But the one question that I asked him that made sense to me was, and I don't even know how that question came about, but I asked him that, what is your need for money? You know, when I asked him, what is your need for money? You know his answer. Nothing. It all made sense then. Because he didn't have any need for money, he just could put that money into trading, put on any position, and not care about growing it and then making any meaningful investment or anything for it. Mind you, going further, I kind of realized that he had other businesses that was making good income. So trading for him became like a hobby or something that he felt like he could diversify into, right? So in this conversation, he was really doing the reverse of what I am talking about. Instead of trading and diversifying the trading proceeds, he was making income, and then his diversification was putting into trading. Is it making sense? Because for the most part, you want to actually trade, make that money, and diversify. But he was making money from elsewhere, which was making good sense, and then he would put that money into trading and then blow it. And he was comfortably blowing it because he knows that what? The next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's going to be another 100, 200, 500 coming from this source. So he didn't really have any need for money. So you must define your need for money as a trader, right? Once you define your need for money, it indirectly lets you respect money, because any money you make is a step closer to achieving what that need for money is. You start thinking about it. If it's a house you want to buy, if it's an investment you want to make, if it's a car you want to buy, anything is all up to you and your goals. Nobody restricts you. But any money that you make, you indirectly calculate at the back of your mind that, okay, if that thing costs X amount, I am Y minus X close to getting that thing. You have to also develop a comprehensive budget. Budget goes beyond even just like the way we spend and then you write your budget, right? Budgets can come from certain realistic goals on how much it's going to cost you to achieve those needs, right? So me, every year, what I do, starting from November before the year ends towards December, typically in December, I start setting my year-on goals. What do I want to achieve in the year 2026? And that's as far as personal development goes. That's as far as my own objective as a human being goes. I make sure that I do that and seal that on before the new year even begins. So, because I'm married, I always do that with my wife, by the way, because we always have to align our goals. And then I think through, I want to buy this, I want to complete this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then when the year begins, I'm not just doing that on a wishful thinking basis. I put money to it. Okay, if I want to buy this house, how much does it cost? If I want to buy this car, how much does it cost? If I want to buy this property here, how much does it cost? Then I watch myself. Okay, in my trading account, on a regular, how much do I make? In my different streams of income, how much do I make? I put it all together and I project that, okay, this is what I realistically expect to come into my coffers as income. And so I know that while I'm working throughout the year, I'm revisiting those goals and seeing that, okay, I'm closer to this, I'm closer to this, I'm going to put this money here, I'm going to do this. So it's very important for you to do that. If you don't have any financial background, or you don't even know where to start from, then you can consult a financial advisor to do that. And then you can monitor and adjust your financial plans as the year goes on, right? You have the flexibility to do that. So we've spoken about the diversification, which goes beyond trading. Like I said, don't be like my friend who makes good income from a different source and come and put it in trading and blow it up. Be the other way, where you make money from trading and better put it in somewhere stable. In terms of diversification, you can explore different assets, right? You can go into properties, commodities, and so many. I personally diversify mostly into properties. And sometimes I do diversify into commodities as well, like purchasing physical gold. And then I like cryptos as well. I don't trade crypto. I invest in crypto. I buy them and I hold them. Now that cryptos are even at the lowest is when I'm accumulating the most. So anytime I make money from trading, I just put it in my crypto trust wallet. And so you must understand your allocation, right? And it also boils down to your personal choice, though. How much money you want to go into what, right? So I have a chunk of my money going into properties, and then, you can do the math yourself. Maybe 40% of my income goes here, 20% goes here, 30% goes here, 10% goes here. And then you must also very well assess and analyze the risk and reward of those diversification, because it's not as if the moment you diversify, you're free and then they're supposed to generate wealth, right? Now, let's say, for instance, you diversify into crypto, they're going down, right? I put money into crypto, I lost about 5% of it. But it's all assessed and measured, so it doesn't even affect me because you understand that when it also goes in the opposite direction, you'll probably be up the same percentage. I already spoke about the fact that I'm well diversified into properties. Now, when it comes to properties, there are so many means of, let's say, getting on hold with property investment. Some people build to sell, buy and sell, build to rent, buy to rent. I build to sell and build to rent. But I mostly prefer building to rent. Why? Because it creates cash flows. And as a trader, your income is, your trading profit is your cash flow. So if you want something that's going to reliably replace that, then it can easily be rental income that you're getting from your tenants when you have 10 properties in your holdings, 20 properties in your holding. That's where it begins to make sense. If you have 1, 2 property, you don't even see how much of a great sense it makes with the cash flows. But the moment you begin to cross the 10, then it's something you can comfortably rely on. And so that can be another means. And I already spoke about the fact that I like the crypto as well, because that's like another stream of income, which is obviously taking on a lot of risk, but in the most calculated way that, and in fact, personally for me, crypto doesn't account for more than 5% of my personal diversification. But in terms of the diversification, or in terms of the allocation of even within the crypto ecosystem, the coins that are purchased, I don't normally like the popular ones that everybody just knows more with the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, because they are overly priced now. I'd normally go with projects that have very reasonable prospects, but currently trading at lower price. So it means that I have a lot more money to purchase them very early on. So that becomes a very good stream of income. And then precious metals like gold. You know how gold has been performing these days. Good hedge for investment. So you can build a very reasonable timeline for yourself in how you want to grow your income, right? I had a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, and a 15-year goal, right? But if you don't have anyone at all, you can start from here, having a 1-year goal, 3 years goal, and then 5-year goal. That's like your short-term, medium range, and long-term goals. And that's going to inform where you put your money, what business you want to start, right? So, in fact, one aspect that I didn't touch on in the diversification is also certain physical businesses as well. So it's not only about investing and building houses and all of that. You can have physical businesses, maybe in e-commerce, right? Buying and selling of products, or whatever it is, or even starting an online business as well, right? That could be also a very good diversification means as well. Something that does not require you coming back to watch the chart before you make any meaningful gains. As far as you have that in a very stable and locked up way, then you're doing the right thing. So this is the last words that I have for you. After a significant win, you have to be very careful and be crucial with your spending. Once that big money comes in, take this away from me, breathe on that money, minimum 3 days, let it recalibrate your brains to make the right choices, because always remember that when that money is spent, you cannot make it back, or you cannot get that same money back. And once you have that well aligned, I'm sure you will not blow the bag when you make it. Thank you for having me.